The mining station on Kepler 442b hummed with the constant vibration of extraction equipment, boring deep into the planet's crust. Marcus Chen wiped sweat from his forehead as he checked the atmospheric readings on his tablet. 3 months into his solo assignment, and the isolation was starting to get to him. The company had promised a 2-person crew, but budget cuts meant he was stuck alone on this dusty rock, monitoring automated systems and filing daily reports that probably nobody read. The planet's twin suns cast an orange glow through the reinforced windows of the habitat module. Marcus had grown used to the strange light, but something felt different today. A prickling sensation at the back of his neck made him pause his work. He'd learned to trust his instincts during his years in the mining corps, and right now every instinct screamed that he was being watched. He stepped outside the habitat, his boots crunching on the crystalline surface. The air was breathable but thin, requiring him to move slowly to avoid exhaustion. The mining complex stretched before him like a metallic spider, its legs reaching deep into the planet's mineral-rich core. Everything appeared normal, but that feeling of being observed persisted. What Marcus didn't know was that 3 kilometers away, something crouched behind a formation of twisted rock spires, studying him through compound eyes that could detect heat signatures across vast distances. The creature's name was Zethkri, and in his language, it meant silent death. He belonged to the Vorthak, a species that had spent millennia perfecting the art of hunting across the galaxy. Zethkri's elongated limbs were perfectly adapted for stealth. His chitinous exoskeleton could shift colors to match any environment, and his 6 arms ended in razor-sharp talons designed for quick, efficient kills. The Vorthak were apex predators, and Zethkri was among their elite hunters. He had tracked prey across dozens of worlds, from the ice caves of Proxima Centauri's moons to the volcanic archipelagos of Wolf 359. But this human intrigued him. Most prey species showed obvious signs of fear when they sensed his presence. They would huddle together, seek shelter, or attempt to flee. This human, however, seemed to acknowledge the danger but continued his work with remarkable composure. Zethkri watched as Marcus methodically checked each piece of equipment, his movements efficient and purposeful, despite the obvious tension in his shoulders. The hunter had been observing the mining station for 5 days, learning the human's routines. Marcus woke at precisely 0600 local time, performed a series of physical exercises, consumed his morning meal, and then began his daily inspection of the mining equipment. He worked with the dedication of someone who took pride in his craft, even when no one was watching. This level of discipline impressed Zethkri, though he tried to dismiss the feeling. Prey was prey, regardless of how interesting their behavior might be. The Vorthak hunting codes were clear. Identify the target, study its weaknesses, strike at the optimal moment, and claim the trophy. Marcus Chen was simply another entry in what would be a long and distinguished hunting career. Yet something nagged at the hunter as he watched Marcus repair a damaged atmospheric processor. The human worked with tools that seemed primitive compared to Vorthak technology, but his efficiency was remarkable. When a coupling failed, Marcus didn't panic or call for support. Instead, he fashioned a replacement from scrap metal, his hands moving with the confidence of someone who had solved similar problems countless times. The Vorthak prized strength and cunning above all else, and this human displayed both qualities in abundance. Marcus lifted heavy equipment that should have required mechanical assistance, and when a dust storm threatened to damage the solar array, he quickly devised a protection system using salvaged materials. These were not the actions of typical prey species, who usually relied on technology or numbers to compensate for their individual weaknesses. As the local day cycle ended, and Marcus returned to his habitat, Zethkri found himself facing an unexpected dilemma. The hunt should have been simple. Wait for the human to venture far enough from his shelter, then strike quickly and efficiently. But something about Marcus Chen challenged the hunter's assumptions about prey species. The human's daily routine spoke of someone who refused to be broken by isolation or hardship. He maintained his physical conditioning, kept meticulous records, and even took time to tend a small hydroponic garden inside his habitat. These were the actions of someone who believed in the value of life and work, even when no one else was around to witness it. Zethkri settled into his concealed position for another night of observation, telling himself that he was simply being thorough in his reconnaissance. The hunt would proceed as planned, but perhaps a few more days of study would reveal the optimal approach. The human was proving to be more complex than anticipated, and the hunter found himself curious about what other surprises Marcus Chen might reveal. In the habitat below, Marcus prepared his evening meal and updated his daily log. He couldn't shake the feeling that something was out there in the darkness, something that meant him harm. But he had survived 3 tours on hostile mining worlds by staying alert without letting paranoia paralyze him. Whatever was watching him would have to make its move eventually, and when it did, Marcus intended to be ready. The stage was set for a confrontation that would challenge everything both predator and prey believed about the nature of hunting, survival, and what it truly meant to be apex creatures in a vast and dangerous universe. The equipment failure alarm jolted Marcus awake at 347 hours. Red lights bathed his habitat in an urgent glow as the automated systems reported a critical malfunction in mining shaft 7. The deepest bore had struck something unexpected, and the extraction equipment was backing up dangerous levels of pressure. If the containment seals failed, the entire operation could suffer catastrophic damage. Marcus threw on his environmental suit and grabbed his emergency toolkit. The shaft was located 800 meters from the main habitat, farther than he usually ventured during the night cycle. But mining equipment worth millions of credits couldn't wait for daylight, and the automated safety systems were already showing strain patterns that suggested imminent failure. From his concealed position, Zethkri watched the human's rapid response with growing fascination. Most prey species would have waited for safer conditions or attempted to contact their homeworld for assistance. This human, however, moved toward danger with the purposeful stride of someone who refused to let circumstances dictate his actions. The hunter followed at a distance, his color-shifting exoskeleton rendering him nearly invisible against the rocky terrain. This would be the perfect opportunity to strike. The human would be focused on his repairs, isolated from his defensive position, and working in an area where an accident could easily explain his disappearance. Yet Zethkri found himself hesitating, curious to see how Marcus would handle this crisis. The shaft's emergency lighting revealed the scope of the problem. The drilling equipment had broken through into what appeared to be a vast underground cavern, and exotic gases were venting through the breach at dangerous pressures. The automated systems had correctly identified the situation as potentially catastrophic, but they lacked the creative problem-solving skills needed to devise a solution. Marcus studied the readouts on his portable scanner, his breath forming small clouds in the cold night air. The gas composition was unlike anything in the geological surveys, suggesting the cavern might contain valuable deposits. But first, he needed to prevent the equipment from destroying itself, and potentially triggering a collapse that could swallow the entire mining complex. Working with methodical precision, Marcus began rerouting the pressure release systems. The standard protocols called for emergency shutdown and evacuation, but that would mean abandoning months of work and potentially losing the mining claim to corporate competitors. Instead, he improvised a solution that would contain the pressure while allowing controlled exploration of the discovery. Zethkri crept closer, marveling at the human's ingenuity. Marcus had identified the core problem within minutes and was now implementing a fix that showed remarkable understanding of both the equipment and the underlying physics. The hunter had observed many intelligent species, but few displayed this combination of technical knowledge and practical problem-solving under pressure. The repair work required Marcus to enter the shaft itself, descending nearly 50 meters on maintenance ladders while carrying heavy equipment. The confined space and potential for gas poisoning would have paralyzed most creatures with claustrophobic terror, but the human moved with steady confidence. His breathing remained controlled, and his movements showed no sign of panic despite the obvious danger. As Marcus worked to install pressure relief valves at multiple levels, Zethkri found himself admiring the human's courage. The Vorthak honored bravery above all other virtues, believing that a warrior's worth was measured by their willingness to face death without flinching. This human, working alone in a dark shaft filled with toxic gases, demonstrated the kind of courage that Vorthak legends celebrated. The installation took 3 hours of painstaking work. Marcus had to fabricate several components on the spot, using his welding equipment to modify standard fittings for the unique pressure conditions. When a tool slipped and fell into the darkness below, he didn't curse or rage. Instead, he calmly retrieved a backup from his kit and continued working. Zethkri was positioned close enough to strike multiple times during the repair process. The human's back was exposed, his attention focused on technical problems, and the shaft would have provided perfect concealment for the kill. Yet the hunter remained motionless, transfixed by Marcus's display of skill and determination. When the pressure finally stabilized and the equipment returned to safe operating parameters, Marcus didn't celebrate or rush back to his habitat. Instead, he spent another hour documenting the discovery and updating his reports. His thoroughness impressed the hunter, who recognized the attention to detail that separated competent warriors from exceptional ones. The return journey to the habitat provided Zethekri with his best opportunity yet to complete the hunt. The human was exhausted from the night's work, walking slowly across open terrain with limited cover. A single leap would close the distance, and the hunter's talons could end the pursuit before Marcus could react. But as he prepared to spring, Zethekri found himself thinking about the human's actions in the shaft. Marcus had risked his life not for glory or combat, but to preserve something he had built with his own hands. This wasn't the behavior of prey seeking only survival. This was the conduct of someone who took responsibility for his domain and refused to abandon it in the face of danger. The Vorthak had legends about such individuals, warriors who stood alone against impossible odds not because they sought death, but because they refused to yield what they had sworn to protect. These stories were told around ceremonial fires, inspiring young hunters to aspire to similar levels of honor and courage. As Marcus reached his habitat and began the decontamination process, Zethekri retreated to his concealed position. The hunt could wait another day, perhaps several more days. The human had proven himself worthy of additional study, and the hunter told himself that patience would lead to a more satisfying conclusion. In truth, Zethekri was beginning to suspect that Marcus Chen might be something unprecedented in his hunting experience, prey that was worthy of respect. The implications of that realization troubled him more than he cared to admit, but curiosity was proving stronger than hunting instinct. Tomorrow would bring new opportunities to observe the human's behavior, and perhaps new insights into what made this particular prey so remarkably different from all the others. 3 days after the shaft incident, the morning routine at the mining station was interrupted by an unexpected visitor. A massive dust storm had blown debris against the habitat's outer wall, and among the accumulated material, Marcus discovered something that made him pause. Tracks. Not the scattered impressions left by the planet's small indigenous creatures, but deliberate footprints in a pattern that suggested intelligence and purpose. The tracks were unlike anything in the planetary survey database. 6-toed impressions with claw marks extending beyond each digit, arranged in a gait pattern that spoke of a bipedal creature significantly larger than a human. The prints circled the habitat at a distance of roughly 50 meters, as if something had been studying the installation from multiple angles. Marcus crouched beside the clearest print, using his scanner to record detailed measurements. The depth suggested a creature weighing between 150 and 200 kilograms, and the spacing indicated leg length proportionally greater than human anatomy. Whatever had made these tracks possessed both size and apparent intelligence, a combination that warranted serious caution. From his new hiding spot behind a cluster of mineral formations, Zethekri watched the human's investigation with growing unease. The storm had been an unexpected complication, erasing his carefully maintained concealment and revealing evidence of his presence. Most prey species would have panicked at such a discovery, immediately attempting to contact their homeworld or barricade themselves inside their shelter. Marcus, however, approached the situation with the same methodical analysis he applied to technical problems. He photographed each track from multiple angles, collected soil samples from the impressions, and mapped the creature's apparent route around the installation. His actions suggested someone gathering intelligence rather than someone paralyzed by fear. After completing his examination of the tracks, Marcus did something that surprised the hunter even further. Instead of retreating to his habitat, he began modifying the mining station's defensive capabilities. Working with scrap materials and spare components, he started constructing what appeared to be an early warning system. The project took the better part of the day, and Zethekri found himself fascinated by the human's approach. Marcus didn't simply activate existing security protocols or hunker down behind barriers. Instead, he was creating new solutions tailored to the specific threat the tracks represented. Motion sensors positioned at strategic intervals, improvised alarm systems connected to his communication equipment, and even basic traps designed to slow down a large approaching creature. But the most intriguing aspect of Marcus's preparations was their restraint. The human was clearly capable of constructing lethal defenses, but his modifications seemed designed to detect and deter rather than kill. The traps would immobilize rather than maim, and the alarm systems appeared configured to warn rather than automatically summon military support. This approach puzzled Zethkri, whose experience with prey species typically involved extremes of passive terror or aggressive overreaction. Marcus seemed to be preparing for the possibility of contact rather than inevitable conflict. The human's behavior suggested someone who understood the difference between being ready for violence and being eager for it. As the afternoon progressed, Marcus began the strangest preparation of all. Near the habitat's main entrance, he set up what appeared to be a communication station. Speakers, recording equipment, and translation software were arranged in a configuration that suggested someone expecting to establish dialogue rather than deliver ultimatums. The hunter found this development deeply troubling. In his experience, prey species either fled or fought when confronted by superior predators. They didn't prepare for conversation. The implications challenged fundamental assumptions about the relationship between predator and prey that had guided Vorthak culture for millennia. When evening arrived and Marcus completed his preparations, he did something that left Zethkri completely bewildered. The human positioned himself in the open space between his habitat and the communication station, clearly visible to anyone watching from the surrounding terrain. Then he began to speak. "I know you're out there," Marcus said, his voice carrying clearly across the stillness. "The tracks tell me you've been watching this place for several days. If you're intelligent enough to study my routines, you're probably intelligent enough to understand that I'm trying to communicate." Zethkri felt his secondary heart skip beats as the human continued. "I don't know what you want or where you come from, but this doesn't have to end in violence. I'm alone here. No threat to anyone who doesn't threaten me first. If you want something from this place, maybe we can discuss it like rational beings." The hunter's training screamed at him to exploit this moment of vulnerability, to end the unusual chase with a decisive strike. But something in Marcus's tone gave him pause. The human wasn't pleading or attempting to bargain from a position of weakness. His words carried the confidence of someone making a reasonable offer between equals. "My name is Marcus Chen," the human continued. "I'm a mining engineer, not a soldier. I've worked on dozens of worlds, and I've learned that most conflicts start from misunderstanding rather than malice. If you can understand my words, please consider that communication might serve both our interests better than whatever you originally planned." Marcus remained in the open for nearly an hour, occasionally repeating his message in slightly different words. He showed no signs of fear or deception, maintaining the same calm demeanor he displayed during his daily work. When he finally returned to his habitat, his movements remained unhurried and purposeful. That night, Zethkri found himself facing a crisis that had nothing to do with hunting techniques or prey behavior. The human's offer of communication struck at the heart of everything the Vorthak believed about the relationship between predator and prey. In their culture, such relationships were defined by power and dominance, not mutual respect or dialogue. Yet Marcus Chen had demonstrated qualities that Vorthak society valued above all others: courage, intelligence, and strength of purpose. The human had faced an unknown threat by preparing for multiple possibilities rather than assuming the worst. He had shown the wisdom to seek understanding before resorting to violence, and the confidence to stand in the open and speak his truth. These were not the characteristics of prey. These were the qualities of a worthy opponent, perhaps even a potential ally. The realization left Zethkri staring at the stars and questioning everything he thought he knew about hunting, honor, and what it truly meant to be a predator in a universe full of surprising creatures. The hunt was evolving into something entirely unexpected, and the hunter was beginning to suspect that he might learn more from this encounter than any trophy could ever teach him. For 2 days after Marcus's open invitation, Zethkri wrestled with a decision that challenged everything he understood about his purpose. The human continued his daily routines with apparent normalcy, but the hunter's enhanced senses detected subtle changes in behavior. Marcus checked his improvised warning systems regularly, and his movements showed increased awareness of potential approach routes. Yet he maintained his offer of communication, repeating his message each evening from the same exposed position. The turning point came when Zethkri witnessed something that shattered his remaining assumptions about human nature. During Marcus's routine inspection of the mining equipment, a cascade failure in the power distribution system sent electrical feedback through the main control panel. The explosion knocked the human unconscious and started fires in two critical systems that threatened to spread throughout the facility. From his concealed position, Zethkri watched as Marcus regained consciousness in a facility filling with toxic smoke. The rational response would have been immediate evacuation, but the human instead chose to fight the fires before they could destroy months of work. Working through obvious pain from his injuries, Marcus systematically isolated damaged systems and deployed emergency suppression protocols. The hunter found himself moving closer, drawn by a combination of fascination and something he couldn't quite identify. Marcus was risking his life to preserve his work, demonstrating the kind of dedication to duty that Vorthak warriors aspired to achieve. But more than that, the human was fighting alone against impossible odds without any expectation of recognition or reward. When Marcus stumbled and fell while carrying a heavy fire suppression unit, Zethkri made a decision that would have scandalized his hunting clan. Instead of capitalizing on the human's vulnerability, the hunter emerged from concealment and moved to assist. His 6 arms made quick work of the suppression equipment, and his superior strength allowed him to handle tasks that were pushing Marcus beyond his physical limits. The moment when their eyes first met was electric with possibility and danger. Marcus froze for perhaps 3 seconds, his expression cycling through surprise, assessment, and something approaching relief. Then, without missing a beat, he pointed toward the most critical fire and said, "That control panel needs to be disconnected before the flames reach the fuel lines. Can you handle the main shutoff while I deal with the secondary systems?" Zethkri found himself nodding and moving to comply before his conscious mind had fully processed the request. Working together, they contained the fires in half the time either could have managed alone. The hunter's natural advantages complemented Marcus's technical knowledge, creating an efficiency that surprised them both. When the immediate crisis passed and they stood among the smoking ruins of the control room, an awkward silence stretched between them. Zethkri was acutely aware that he had just violated fundamental principles of Vorthak hunting culture, while Marcus seemed to be processing the reality of his unexpected ally's appearance. "Thank you," Marcus said finally, extending his hand in what the hunter recognized as a human gesture of gratitude. "I'm Marcus Chen, as I mentioned during my evening broadcasts." "And you are?" The simple courtesy of the introduction caught Zethkri off guard. In his experience, first contact between species typically involved either submission or aggression. Marcus was treating him as an equal, someone worthy of normal social interaction despite the obvious differences in their capabilities and origins. "I am called Zethkri," the hunter replied, his vocal cords struggling with human phonemes. Was hunting you." The admission felt strange on his tongue, but something about Marcus's straightforward manner demanded honesty in return. Marcus nodded thoughtfully, showing no sign of fear or anger at the revelation. "Past tense, I hope? Because I have to admit, having someone with your capabilities as an ally would be considerably more useful than having you as an enemy." The pragmatic response impressed Zethkri almost as much as the lack of moral judgment. Marcus wasn't condemning him for his original intentions or demanding explanations. Instead, the human was focusing on current circumstances and future possibilities. This approach aligned perfectly with Vorthak practical philosophy, even as it challenged their cultural assumptions about predator-prey relationships. "Your species fascinates me," Zethkri admitted as they began assessing the damage to the mining equipment. "I have hunted across many worlds, but I have never encountered prey that responds to threat with offers of cooperation." Marcus paused in his examination of a damaged processor. "Maybe that's because you've been thinking about it wrong. I'm not prey, and unless I'm seriously misreading the situation, you're not really a predator. You're an intelligent being capable of making choices just like me. The question is what we choose to do next." The hunter considered this perspective as they worked together to restore basic functionality to the mining station. Marcus's technical expertise was remarkable, but his approach to problem-solving impressed Zethkri even more. The human treated each challenge as a puzzle to be solved, rather than an obstacle to be overcome through force. When standard solutions proved inadequate, Marcus improvised with whatever materials were available. More importantly, Marcus included Zethkri in the repair process as a full partner, rather than merely an assistant. The human explained each procedure, asked for input on technical decisions, and adapted his methods to take advantage of the hunter's unique capabilities. This collaborative approach was unlike anything in Zethkri's experience with hierarchical Vorthak society. As they worked, Marcus shared stories about his previous assignments and the challenges of solo mining operations. His anecdotes revealed someone who found genuine satisfaction in overcoming obstacles and creating something valuable from raw materials. The human's passion for his work was evident in every word, and his respect for the complexity of the universe shone through his descriptions of different worlds and their unique characteristics. In return, Zethkri found himself describing aspects of Vorthak culture that he had never discussed with outsiders. Marcus listened with genuine interest, asking thoughtful questions that revealed his understanding of the philosophical implications behind different cultural practices. The human's curiosity was infectious, and the hunter discovered that explaining his people's traditions helped him see them from new perspectives. By the time they restored minimal power to the habitat systems, something fundamental had changed between them. The hunt was over, replaced by something entirely unprecedented in Zethkri's experience. Marcus had demonstrated that the categories of predator and prey were far too simple to encompass the complexity of intelligent beings capable of choosing cooperation over conflict. As the planet's twin suns set on their first day as unlikely allies, both Marcus and Zethkri realized they were participating in something that could change how their respective species understood their place in the galaxy. The partnership that emerged between Marcus and Zethkri over the following weeks challenged everything both individuals thought they knew about interspecies relations. The human's methodical approach to problems complemented the Vorthak's instinctive understanding of environmental factors, creating solutions neither could have achieved alone. But more significant than their technical collaboration was the gradual development of mutual respect and something approaching friendship. Marcus discovered that Zethkri possessed an almost supernatural ability to predict equipment failures before standard diagnostics detected any problems. The hunter's enhanced senses could detect minute changes in vibration patterns, electromagnetic signatures, and chemical emissions that warned of impending malfunctions hours or even days in advance. This capability transformed routine maintenance into a proactive system that dramatically improved the mining operations' efficiency. In return, Marcus introduced Zethkri to concepts of engineering and systematic problem-solving that revolutionized the hunter's understanding of how complex systems functioned. The Vorthak had always relied on instinct and natural ability, but Marcus demonstrated how analytical thinking could enhance and direct those capabilities toward achieving specific goals. Their first major collaboration came when seismic sensors detected unusual activity deep beneath the mining complex. The geological data suggested that the cavern Marcus had discovered weeks earlier was part of a much larger underground system, one that might contain mineral deposits worth millions of credits. However, exploring the system would require techniques and equipment that exceeded the standard mining operations capabilities. Working together, they designed an exploration plan that utilized both human technology and Vorthak natural abilities. Marcus provided technical equipment and analytical frameworks, while Zethkri's superior strength enhanced senses, and natural climbing abilities made him the ideal candidate for reconnaissance in dangerous underground environments. The cavern system proved to be even more remarkable than their initial scans had suggested. Vast chambers connected by passages that showed clear signs of geological activity, spanning millions of years. Some sections contained crystalline formations unlike anything in standard geological databases, while others revealed mineral veins that could transform the mining operation from a marginal venture into a highly profitable enterprise. But the most significant discovery came in the deepest accessible chamber, where they found evidence of previous visitation. Carved symbols on chamber walls, arranged in patterns that suggested intentional communication rather than random decoration. The markings were ancient, but Zethkri's cultural knowledge included similar symbols from Vorthak historical records. These aren't random scratches, Zethkri explained as he traced the carved patterns with one claw. They're warning markers used by deep space travelers to indicate dangerous or significant locations. But the style is older than any Vorthak records I know. Marcus studied the symbols through his tablet's analysis software, comparing them with databases of known alien writing systems. The computer can't match them to any current galactic languages, but the mathematical relationships in the patterns suggest sophisticated intelligence. Whoever made these understood complex engineering principles. The implications were staggering. If the planet contained evidence of an unknown civilization, it would transform their understanding of galactic history and potentially reveal technologies beyond current capabilities. But it would also mean that their mining operation was taking place on what might be considered an archaeological site of immense importance. This realization forced both Marcus and Zethkri to confront difficult questions about responsibility and ethics. The mining contract gave Marcus legal rights to extract minerals, but discovering evidence of an unknown civilization complicated those rights considerably. Similarly, Zethkri's original mission had been simple hunting, but he now found himself involved in decisions that could affect multiple species across the galaxy. There, discussions about how to proceed revealed fundamental differences in their cultural approaches to such problems. Human protocol emphasized documentation, consultation with authorities, and systematic research before taking any action that might damage potential archaeological evidence. Vorthak tradition, however, focused on immediate assessment of threat levels and decisive action based on available information. Marcus advocated for suspending mining operations and contacting the appropriate scientific authorities, even though this might result in losing the mining claim and months of invested effort. Zethkri, while respecting the humans' ethical concerns, pointed out that involving external authorities could lead to the site being overrun by researchers, military personnel, and corporate interests that might care more about exploitation than preservation. The debate continued for several days, during which they continued exploring the cavern system while carefully documenting everything they found. Additional chambers revealed more carved symbols, along with what appeared to be deliberate modifications to the natural cave structure. Passages had been widened or redirected, water flow had been channeled through artificial channels, and several chambers showed evidence of tool use on their walls and floors. The breakthrough came when Zethkri's enhanced hearing detected something that human equipment had missed: regular sound patterns echoing from deep within the unexplored sections of the cave system. The sounds weren't random geological noise, but showed the kind of repetitive patterns associated with artificial systems still in operation. Something down there is still active, Zethkri reported after spending hours analyzing the audio patterns. The rhythms are too regular to be natural, and they're coming from depths we haven't reached yet. Marcus felt a chill of excitement mixed with apprehension. Active systems meant the possibility of encountering whoever had created the symbols, or at least discovering technology that was still functional after potentially millions of years. But it also meant venturing into unknown territory, where their understanding of safe procedures might prove inadequate. "We need to proceed carefully," Marcus said, already beginning to plan their approach. "If there's active technology down there, we could be dealing with automated systems, environmental hazards, or even the possibility of contact with whoever built this place." Zethkri nodded agreement, his hunting instincts fully engaged by the prospect of exploring truly unknown territory. "My people have legends about discoveries like this, places where ancient powers still stir in the darkness. The stories always emphasize that such encounters change everyone involved, usually in ways they never expected." As they prepared for what might be their most dangerous exploration yet, both Marcus and Zethkri realized that their partnership had evolved far beyond its original parameters. They were no longer simply a human miner and an alien hunter working together for mutual benefit. They had become explorers on the verge of potentially the most significant discovery in galactic history, bound together by shared curiosity and mutual trust that transcended the boundaries of species and culture. The descent into the deepest sections of the cavern system required 3 days of careful preparation. Marcus fabricated specialized climbing equipment adapted for Zethkri's unique physiology, while the hunter used his knowledge of underground environments to identify potential hazards that human technology might miss. Their planning sessions had evolved into seamless collaboration, each contributing expertise that enhanced their collective capabilities. The active sounds Zethkri had detected grew stronger as they descended, resolving into distinct mechanical rhythms that suggested complex automated systems. Environmental sensors detected atmospheric changes as well, with oxygen levels actually increasing at greater depths, along with trace elements that didn't match the planet's surface composition. 2 kilometers below the original mining level, they discovered the source of both the sounds and the atmospheric anomalies. A vast chamber, larger than anything they had encountered previously, housed what could only be described as a still-functioning artificial ecosystem. Bioluminescent organisms provided gentle illumination, while mechanical systems maintained atmospheric composition and water circulation. The technology was so advanced and so seamlessly integrated with biological components that it took them several minutes to distinguish between artificial and natural elements. "This is impossible," Marcus whispered, as his scanners struggled to analyze the hybrid systems surrounding them. Some of these biological components showed genetic patterns that should have died out millions of years ago. But the mechanical supports are using materials and energy sources that we've never seen before. Zethkri moved through the chamber with the fluid grace of someone completely at home in complex environments, his enhanced senses providing information that supplemented Marcus's technological analysis. The energy signatures are unlike anything in Vorthak databases either, but they feel intentional, as if this entire system was designed to wait for something. The something turned out to be them. As they approached the chamber's center, where the largest mechanical systems hummed with quiet efficiency, panels in the walls began displaying symbols that matched those they had found in the upper chambers. But these symbols were moving, rearranging themselves in patterns that seemed to respond to their presence. Marcus's translation software worked frantically to decode the shifting patterns, while Zethkri's pattern recognition abilities traced connections between symbol groups. Slowly, meaning began to emerge from the alien writing system. The messages were greetings, followed by questions that demonstrated remarkable understanding of both human and Vorthak thought patterns. "It knows we're here," Marcus said, his voice filled with wonder and apprehension. "But more than that, it knows what we are. These questions are specifically designed for our species, asking about concepts that would only make sense to humans and Vorthak." The communication system was patient, repeating questions when they failed to respond quickly enough, and adapting its approach when their answers suggested confusion. Gradually, they pieced together the story of the chamber's creators, a species called the Architects, who had explored the galaxy millions of years before any current civilization achieved spaceflight. The Architects had been builders and teachers, creating automated systems on promising worlds that would activate when indigenous species achieved certain levels of technological and social development. The chamber wasn't just a repository of ancient technology. It was a test and a gift, designed to identify species ready for advancement beyond their current limitations. But the test wasn't about technical knowledge or military capability. The questions focused on cooperation, ethical decision-making, and the ability to work across species boundaries. The chamber's systems had been monitoring their collaboration for weeks, analyzing how a human and a Vorthak had overcome their fundamental differences to achieve common goals. Were the first test, subjects in millions of years to demonstrate genuine partnership between different species. Zethkri realized as the implications became clear. The Architects designed this as a graduation ceremony for civilizations mature enough to move beyond predator-prey relationships. The chamber began revealing its treasures as they successfully answered increasingly complex ethical scenarios, advanced manufacturing techniques that could revolutionize both human and Vorthak technology, energy systems that would eliminate resource scarcity, and most importantly, communication and translation protocols that would enable true understanding between any intelligent species. But with knowledge came responsibility. The Architects' final message was both gift and warning. The technology they were being offered would fundamentally change galactic civilization, but only if it was used to promote cooperation rather than dominance. The chamber systems would continue monitoring their actions, ready to withdraw the gift if they proved unworthy of its power. Marcus and Zethkri spent hours in the chamber, absorbing information that challenged everything their respective species believed about technology, society, and their place in the universe. The Architects had achieved something beyond mere technological advancement. They had created a framework for peaceful coexistence between radically different forms of intelligent life. When they finally returned to the surface, both carried portable storage devices containing enough advanced knowledge to transform their civilizations, but they also carried the weight of unprecedented responsibility. They were no longer simply a human miner and a Vorthak hunter. They had become ambassadors for an entirely new approach to interspecies relations. "We can't just turn this over to our respective governments," Marcus said as they emerged into the planet's orange sunlight. "This technology in the wrong hands could destabilize the entire galaxy." Zethkri nodded agreement, his compound eyes reflecting the complex emotions their discovery had generated. "The architects chose us because we learned to see beyond our original roles. Now we must convince others that cooperation serves everyone's interests better than competition." They had discovered something that went far beyond valuable mineral deposits or advanced technology. They had found proof that intelligent species could transcend their evolutionary origins and create something greater than the sum of their individual capabilities. The question now was whether the galaxy was ready for such a fundamental transformation. As they prepared to contact their respective civilizations with news of their discovery, both Marcus and Zethkri understood that their partnership had become the foundation for something unprecedented in galactic history. The hunter had found prey that became an ally, while the human had discovered that cooperation could achieve what dominance never could. Together they would either help usher in a new age of interspecies collaboration, or watch their discovery become another source of conflict in an already fractured galaxy. 6 months after their discovery in the architect chamber, Marcus and Zethkri found themselves at the center of the most significant diplomatic initiative in galactic history. The mining station on Kepler 442b had been transformed into a neutral meeting ground where representatives from dozens of species gathered to witness demonstrations of architect technology and learn about the cooperation principles that had unlocked its secrets. The initial reactions from both human and Vorthak authorities had been predictably mixed. Military leaders wanted to weaponize the advanced technology, while politicians sought to use it for economic advantage over competing species. But the architect systems proved impossible to exploit for aggressive purposes. The technology simply refused to function when operated by individuals or groups motivated by dominance rather than collaboration. This built-in ethical constraint forced a fundamental reevaluation of how galactic civilizations approach technological advancement. The architects had created systems that could detect the intentions behind their use, rewarding cooperation while remaining inert in the hands of those seeking to harm or exploit others. Marcus had been appointed as the human liaison for the project, while Zethkri served as the Vorthak representative. But their roles had evolved far beyond simple cultural ambassadors. They had become living examples of how different species could transcend their evolutionary programming to achieve something greater than either could accomplish alone. The transformation in their relationship served as a powerful demonstration for visiting delegations. Zethkri's hunting instincts had been redirected toward identifying problems and threats that could be solved through collaboration rather than violence. Marcus's engineering mindset had expanded to encompass biological and social systems, as well as mechanical ones. Together, they represented a new model for interspecies cooperation that challenged fundamental assumptions about competition and survival. The breakthrough moment came when a delegation of crystalline entities, being so alien that previous contact attempts had failed completely, arrived to investigate the architect discovery. Their silicon-based physiology and hive mind consciousness made communication with organic species virtually impossible through conventional means. But the architect translation protocols that Marcus and Zethkri had mastered enabled true dialogue for the first time. The crystalline entities revealed that they had been monitoring galactic civilization for millennia, waiting for evidence that organic species could evolve beyond their destructive competitive instincts. The human-Vorthak partnership represented the first such evidence they had observed. Working together, the three species unlocked additional layers of architect technology that had remained dormant since the ancient civilization's disappearance. Advanced terraforming techniques that could restore damaged worlds, medical technologies that could heal injuries and diseases across any species, and, most remarkably, consciousness-bridging systems that allowed temporary sharing of thoughts and experiences between radically different forms of life. The consciousness-bridging demonstration that Marcus and Zethkri volunteered for became the pivotal moment that convinced skeptical delegations. For 30 minutes, human and Vorthak minds merged through architect technology, allowing each to experience the universe through completely alien senses and thought patterns. The intimacy of shared consciousness broke down barriers that millennia of diplomacy had failed to overcome. Other species began requesting similar demonstrations, leading to understanding breakthroughs that revolutionized interspecies relations throughout the galaxy. The aggressive Catherian swarm discovered that their territorial instincts could be satisfied through cooperative expansion rather than conquest. The isolationist ethereal collective learned that sharing their advanced mathematics could enhance other species' capabilities without diminishing their own achievements. But the most significant transformation occurred within human and Vorthak societies themselves. Young humans began seeking apprenticeships with Vorthak hunting masters, learning enhanced situational awareness and physical capabilities. Vorthak youth in turn studied human engineering and problem-solving techniques, discovering that intellectual tools could be as effective as physical ones. The cultural exchange went far beyond technology transfer. Human artists collaborated with Vorthak craftsmen to create hybrid art forms that expressed concepts neither species could achieve alone. Vorthak hunters adapted their tracking skills to help human scientists study elusive phenomena, while human engineers designed tools that enhanced Vorthak natural abilities, rather than replacing them. Marcus and Zethkri established a permanent research institute on Kepler 442b, dedicated to studying architect technology and training interspecies cooperation teams. Representatives from dozens of civilizations came to learn not just how to operate ancient technology, but how to transcend the limitations of their own evolutionary programming. The institute became a symbol of what intelligent species could achieve when they chose cooperation over competition, complex problems that had stymied individual civilizations for centuries yielded to collaborative approaches that combined different forms of intelligence and perception. As Marcus stood in the observation deck of the expanded facility, watching delegations from across the galaxy work together on projects that would have been impossible for any single species. He reflected on how far they had come. A year ago, he had been a lonely miner expecting to live and die in isolation. Now he was part of something that was reshaping the fundamental nature of galactic civilization. Zethkri joined him at the observation window, his compound eyes reflecting the bustling activity below. "Do you ever wonder what the architects would think of what we've accomplished?" Marcus smiled, thinking of all the species working together in the laboratories and workshops below. "I think they'd be proud that we finally learned the lesson they tried to teach. That intelligence without cooperation is just sophisticated destruction. But intelligence combined with genuine partnership can create miracles." The hunter-turned-teacher nodded, his posture reflecting the contentment of someone who had found a purpose greater than his original programming. "I spent my life believing that the strong must dominate the weak to survive. But we've proven that making others stronger makes us stronger too." As the planet's twin suns set on another day of unprecedented cooperation, Marcus and Zethkri watched the future taking shape through the collaborative efforts of species that had learned to see beyond their differences. The hunt that had brought them together had evolved into something neither could have imagined. Proof that the galaxy's greatest treasures could only be unlocked through partnership, understanding, and the courage to transcend the limitations of their origins. The architect's greatest gift wasn't their technology, but their demonstration that intelligence combined with wisdom could create possibilities that no single species could achieve alone. And in a galaxy finally learning to value cooperation over conquest, that lesson promised to reshape the destiny of countless civilizations for generations to come.